Climate change. Want a cleaner planet? Support public transit. It's no mystery to most people that there's a relationship between transportation and climate change. In fact, many people in urban centers will say that they ride a bus or they ride a bike to work in order to try to reduce their carbon footprint. But the fact is that transportation is in fact a leading cause of climate change. But there's a difference in types of transportation. So you'll see in the chart here, which is from 2012, CO2 emissions from fossil fuel combustion by sector and by fuel type. In short, how much carbon dioxide is being put out into the atmosphere by a certain sector. So you'll see that when the broad commercial sector has a small amount. Residential, this is buildings and houses and how much CO2 they give off, are significant. We see obviously industrial areas contributing significantly more. They split between natural gas and petroleum and coal, whereas small businesses and residences tend to rely mostly on natural gas. And you see electricity generation, these are power plants, rely a significant amount on burning fossil fuel. This is to keep your phones charged, your lights on, your stove working. But look at transportation. Overwhelmingly, the transportation sector relies on petroleum, and overwhelmingly, the transportation sector contributes to CO2 emissions in our atmosphere. What exactly does this mean? The fact is that transportation is a leading cause of climate change in the United States. Most of this transportation emissions and exhaust come from over-the-road vehicles transporting freight across businesses and cities, across states, but many also do come from public transit buses, which is why many transit buses have been moving to natural gas or to electric. Here you see the sources of climate-changing emissions broken down. Electrical production, as we saw, contributes to 33% of climate-changing emissions. Transportation contributes to 28%, which means even if we resolve agriculture issues, even if we retrofit our homes and small businesses to be more energy efficient, even if we start reducing power plant emissions, if we don't tackle the incredible level of emissions in transportation, we will not resolve or slow climate change. The good news is that public transportation, this is energy efficient buses and trains, streetcars, they actually curb carbon emissions. Communities that invest in public transit curb the nation's carbon emissions by 37 million metric tons every year. That's the equivalent to if New York City, DC, Atlanta, Denver, and LA combined stopped using electricity. That is the significance that public transit and energy efficient public transit has in reducing CO2 emissions. Riding public transit reduces the emission of 156 million pounds of nitrogen oxides, which is the leading cause of respiratory disease. Public transit saves 4.7 billion gallons of gasoline annually. So if we go back a slide, we'll see transportation is responsible for climate-changing emissions, and we know that transportation relies a lot on petroleum, but public transportation is the most progressive form of moving people and goods while reducing carbon emissions and reducing the reliance on petroleum. Public transportation offers an immediate alternative for individuals who want to reduce their energy use and carbon footprints. If you want to make a difference yourself, get on a bus or get on a train. Ditch your car if you can to get to work. In recent years, there's been a trend towards buses using alternative fuels. In fact, mostly new procured buses in a lot of cities where the ATU operates, we have seen, have moved to some sort of alternative fuel. Although many older buses remain on the road and remain reliant on fossil fuels. From 1992 to 2009, buses using alternative fuels like natural gas jumped from 2 to 30%, and electric rail transit increased from 29 to 34%. So while we're not quite there as an industry, public transit is moving faster than most.